So after 9 years, with every advantage, Russia still controls less than about 17% of Ukraine. They've lost 20% of their Navy. They have this gigantic Air Force with many more modern aircraft than Ukraine has, yet they have never achieved air superiority, which is job one for any Air Force.
Russia carried out a wave of attacks on several cities across Ukraine overnight. Drones and missiles struck Kyiv, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv and Lviv. Reports suggest at least one person was killed. It comes days after Ukraine struck a Russian warship in Feodosia, the occupied Crimean port. Let's get some thoughts from Ben Hodges, former commander of the US Army Forces in Europe. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, James, good morning.
Just bring us up to speed with what's been happening.
Well, of course, these attacks last night are against civilian targets. I mean, civilian infrastructure. They're not going after Ukrainian military targets. They're going after civilians. So clear continuation of Russian policy of war crimes, trying to destroy the will of Ukrainian people, but also trying to destroy our will in the West to continue supporting Ukraine. This is continuing and it's on and on. That's really the only hope the Russians have, though, is that we lose the will. The Ukrainian people certainly are not.
And was this a pretty inevitable retaliation from the Russians after Ukraine struck that warship a few days ago, which by all accounts was pretty humiliating for Putin?
Well, these are not retaliatory strikes. The Russians have been doing this since the beginning. I think that they have, what I have read, probably about 800 cruise missiles, many of the ones that were launched last night, that they have been stockpiling in anticipation of a resumption of attacks on the energy or the power infrastructure across Ukraine. The strike that sank or destroyed a Russian warship in Feodosia, which is the smaller seaport of the Crimean Peninsula, it should be humiliating because Ukraine, using storm shadows provided by UK and their own innovative tactics, continue to be able to inflict real punishment on Russian forces in and around Crimea. They have proven the concept that Crimea, the most important piece of terrain that Russia occupies inside Ukraine, can be made untenable for Russian forces if Ukraine has the weapons with the range and precision like Storm Shadow, which is why it's just maddening to me, and I cannot understand why my country and Germany both continue to withhold providing ATACMS or the German Taurus, for example, that would allow Ukraine to go after Russian bases inside occupied Ukraine.
And it probably is worth taking a moment, Ben, to consider the success that Ukraine have had in targeting Russia's Black Sea Fleet, because there is a narrative at the moment that the war is at a sort of stalemate and that Putin is growing in confidence. And yet, if you look at the success Ukraine have had this year in the Black Sea, it is remarkable for a country that essentially has no navy.
It's incredible. I mean, about 20% of the Black Sea Fleet is gone. And you're right, Ukraine does not have a navy in the traditional sense anymore. So they're accomplishing this using drones, cruise missiles, sabotage, commando raids, all the different clever things that they can to create that much trouble. So much for the Black Sea Fleet that the commander has withdrawn about a third of the fleet out of Sevastopol and sent them further east into the Black Sea, towards their own legitimate port at Novorossiysk. So there is, I'm glad you brought this up, though, James. There is this kind of a sense that, Ukraine is either losing or it's just there's no way they can win. And I would just ask your listeners to step back and think, okay, Russia started this 9 years ago. So after 9 years, with every advantage, Russia still controls less than about 17% of Ukraine. They've lost 20% of their Navy. They have this gigantic Air Force with many more modern aircraft than Ukraine has, yet they have never achieved air superiority, which is job one for any Air Force. And they have not even been able to destroy a single train or convoy bringing equipment from Poland into Ukraine. And that's job two, is to interdict the other side's lines of communication. And then on the ground, yes, the Ukrainian counteroffensive did not achieve what we all had hoped, and I certainly was wrong in my um, I overestimated what they would be able to accomplish, but still, after these 9 years and almost 320,000 Russian soldiers killed and wounded and thousands of vehicles lost, and this is where we are. So I think that the key here is for the United States, Germany, to do what UK has done, provide long-range weapons capability. Let's get these F-16s into combat here, probably around early summer, and I think the Ukrainians will regain the initiative.